Thank you so much for joining us today. The next hour or so, we're going to be talking through a few concepts, a few design trends, and also throw in a few tricks using 2020 CAP, Giza, visual impression, or Worksheet. Hopefully, I'll give you a few new tips today. And we've got a couple guest speakers as well, so we'll introduce those people in just a minute. Just so you have an idea of what we're going to talk about today, real fast agenda. First, we're going to talk about a design trend called the third space, and I will do a little bit of demonstration in some of the 2020 tools that look at showing off those third spaces using our visualization. We'll look at the concept of designing a flexible open plan. I'll show you a couple tricks in the software to be able to replace items. I'll take a traditional older layout and maybe update it to some newer, more flexible things you can design with today. The third one, collaboration connection, and talking a few different concepts here, and I'll show a few more visualization tools within really trying to demonstrate some of these design concepts. And then finally wrapping up with a really hot topic, health and wellness. What does that have to do with your spaces that you're designing? So I'll show you a few things on organizing your projects or hopefully simplifying some of those larger projects that you're working through. I'm super excited. We're doing something a little bit different with today's webinar, and we've brought in a special guest from Izzy. So if you have not met Sheila before, she is the business development manager at Izzy, and some of the examples and some of the different things that I'm going to be showing today, I'll show off using some of her product. So many of you know we work with a lot of manufacturers, and all of their content is really what makes our tools work so well. So there's going to be hopefully a few examples or a few things that I show relevant to their product. I'm really excited to have her join me because now we're going to be able to bank on some of her knowledge and focus on some of these design trends that we're seeing in the industry. And if you haven't met me before, my name is Vanessa. I'm the Global Training Manager here at 2020, and you might have heard my voice over a training webinar or met me at one of the classes along the way. So I'm actually going to pass it over to Sheila. We're going to talk about a few different concepts.
I am Sheila Wood. I'm with Izzy, and today I'll be talking to you about trends in the workplace. So I'm sure that at one time or another you may have felt like this lady in the picture, chained to your desk, tethered to your computer, phone, and email. This is where the third space was derived from. So what exactly is a third space? Third spaces are about breaking the routine and creating movement in the office. So your desk is the first space. The secondary space is the conference room. The third space is key to breaking up that monotony. Does anyone enjoy sitting at their desk for 5 hours, especially working in AutoCAD, CAP, Worksheet? You really do feel chained to your desk on certain days. And then switching it up to go to a conference room for a meeting that is a few more hours. These third spaces will create impromptu meetings. As you can see to the right, it gives people the option to stand, move around, have some more freedom. And it also gives people the option to work in a more relaxed environment. Third spaces are meant to feel more like a home away from home rather than the high panel cubicles and traditional boardroom conference tables that are traditionally used in workplace settings.
Thank you, Sheila. I want to show you guys a few tricks, especially as it relates to visual impression. So let's talk about applying materials or finishes using some visual materials or adding your own materials. And you might have noticed in some of the images that you saw a moment ago, talking about that third space, they were very colorful, very creative. There's a lot of things going on. So let's try to achieve that in a plan. So I'm going to open up. This one happens to be a CAP drawing. And there's actually a lot of different things going on in today's plan. A lot of very traditional spaces with a lot of panels. But if I come up and I look in this area here, we've got kind of some, general meeting spaces or a little bit lower key areas that aren't necessarily defined to one department or one specific area, but maybe a little more transitional. So I'm going to focus on this low seating area for a moment. So I'm going to open it up in visual impression. This one actually already has a scene boundary built around it, meaning I'll be able to visualize or just look at that one section. I don't have to visualize the whole entire plan. So I'll give this just a moment to open. And I already have a few things that will be specified. So you will see a few finishes, but I'll back up and I'll tell you about how those finishes got there. Now, sometimes when you're rendering or you're working with a product line in visual impression, it's very quick and easy to specify and pick the finishes. You essentially pick the product, you go under the materials, and you go shopping for some different finishes. So for instance, this was showing in a light green, I can change it to a dark green. Okay, so some of your products, it'll automatically apply that finish or show the finish that you want. But you'll notice when I go and I pick on, for example, this freestanding lounge table, I can see my options in my list. So I've got a laminate selection. I'll pick one of these styles. I've got a few different colors. And when I pick it, this catalog actually is not enriched yet. So that means I have to go look for a few of the finishes, but I'll show you a couple tricks to it. Notice a moment ago, I happened to pick one of the wood grain laminates called Smoky Brown Pear. And this one happens to be a Formica color. So I'm going to simply jump up over in the upper right-hand corner to Visual Materials, and I'm going to look. There is a whole section, let me maximize this, in our Visual Materials called Suppliers. So when you install your catalogs, you basically check one more box to say if you'd like to also install these supplier catalogs. And if I step under the Formica catalog, I have a handful of finishes already here for me. Now, depending on how they've been loaded in here and how they're organized, sometimes I can even open that up further and I can look at the different collections, or I'm going to kind of cheat and I'm going to search. I'm going to start typing in the word smoke, and notice I've got a few different, there's a smoky quarterstone, a smoky brown pear, the one we want, and smoky walnut. So let's say I want to use that smoky brown pear right away. I can take that finish, and I'm actually going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to move this over so you can kind of see it. Let's look at that table again. Let's go to Advanced, and I can see that the layer is this kind of bright yellowish orange layer on that product. I'm going to simply take the finish that I found from my supplier and drag and drop it to that layer. So now I can see it on that furniture piece. So I didn't have to do too much homework. I just had to know, okay, what finish does the client want, and where would I like to apply that? Now you might notice that when it came in, it picked a default direction, or it came in, I should say, at a default. And since this was a supplier material, we didn't necessarily know if it was going to be horizontal or vertical. If for some reason I wanted to change that up, I can even come in and create my own custom material off of this, create a quick shortcut to it. So I'll do that real quick. I clicked on Create a Custom Material. The only thing I'm going to do different here is in the bottom right-hand corner, I'm going to change the rotation a bit. Let's go 90 degrees. And I'll save myself a quick image. Now, I happen to have a palette here already called Izzy, but how I created that, just click the little new, and I will call this Webinar for today. And I'm going to create a palette. The cool thing about saving these is now they're really, really easy to access right when I'm inside Visual Impression. I can now drag in that smoky brown pear finish, and in my case, I just changed the orientation and let that kind of follow the grain of the table. All right, so that first scenario, it was a pretty standard finish that we use all the time. Well, imagine though, sometimes you're looking through finishes too. Like if I look at some of the seating, got a really fun fabric on the back here. This one happens to be a fabric from Momentum. So this one, there is a few examples in Visual Materials under the Momentum supplier catalog, but you can imagine how hard it is to have every single finish loaded in here. So if you go in there and you don't see the one you're looking for, you can also load your own. So I jumped out to the web real quick. I'm out on Momentum Textiles website, and if I go search for a particular finish, this one happens to be called Interium. As you can see, I've searched for it before, but if I know exactly which one I want, I can go look for that specific material from the manufacturer. So many of these manufacturers and suppliers offer really great images, some in high quality. You can see all the different colorways that this is available in. Maybe I want to try it in the more neutral color, this one called Draft. And notice, as long as I have access to an image, which this website does give me the access to, I can download that really quick and I can see that. So let's open that image up and see what that looks like. oops, let me bring it over here. So here's a nice zoomed in. Don't worry, this fabric really does kind of have a little bit of a pixelated look to it. So I'm just going to copy this real quick or save this, and now I'll be able to reuse this. So I'll save this to my desktop. It's called Interium Draft. Perfect. Now, when I'm back in Visual Materials, I had previously created a color palette called Webinar. I can hit the plus mark next to that, and this will take me step by step into loading my own image for my own use. Here's the Interium Draft color. I can open that up. Now, when I go and I add this, I'm going to just, for time, type something in real quick, specify a few details about it, like maybe this one is going to be, let's see what I want, this fabric, and I'll pick a few details about it. Now notice it says width and height, and I still have my details like rotation. When I go back and I look at that actually on the website, it does mention the repeat, and it tells me that there's a full repeat shown, about 26 or so inches. So I'm going to actually try that out. This is something that sometimes you have to kind of test, trial and error to see if you get the right scale, but ideally the image that we have, what was the size of that? Let me save that away. Now I'll be able to take that finish and easily apply it to any layer that is on any of my products. I can see the layer is at the top of the list here, and let's try that in a little bit of a more neutral color. There it is. So pretty quick and easy, nice that I can bring in virtually anything. You know, I'm showing this on furniture today, but it literally can be anything. It could be flooring. This happens to be a carpet tile that I brought in. It could be wall finishes if I want to do something other than paint. It could be artwork. You're pretty much unlimited as far as this goes. So just to reiterate some of the things, talking about that third space in so many instances, and you'll see this a little bit later as the design continues, we're going to pop a lot of color and do a lot of things to really make these areas impressive. Let's take a look at the next segment.
Okay, and now we're talking about the flexible open plan. The way we work is changing, so shouldn't the furniture we work in accommodate that? As you can see in this image, it is a very untraditional setting with a few different options. You could have an impromptu meeting at the stand-up type table. You can have some casual conversation at the lounge furniture as well. You also want to have conference rooms that are able to adapt depending on the situation. As you can see to the left, we have some mobile tables that can accommodate a video conference call. You could then adjust them to act as a large conference table for the larger meeting. And then you could again rearrange them for a training type setting. And then here we have furniture that you can adapt to change. So it'll not only work for this current situation, but it can also adapt for growth. You have tables that can accommodate what you'd like to use them for.
So I know we've all seen that. We've probably all lived in a scenario or a situation where things change and we need to kind of rework the furniture that we have. I'm going to come back over into Giza and Cap and show a few tips in here really quickly, switching out part numbers, changing from chair A to chair B. That demonstration or that picture that Sheila showed a second ago with the smaller kind of intimate conference area with video conferencing, I have a scenario like that in my drawing here. So let me move over a little bit to this small room. And in this room, there is kind of a small example that shows some seating in here. And these chairs happen to be kind of basic and simple. And in this one, it's not probably the most comfortable for a really long conference meeting. They're pretty basic chairs. So I might want to switch those out. So one quick, really easy way to do this, I'm in Cap right now, is using Block Replace. If I come up and use the Block Replace tool, this one happens to be right at the very top in my toolbar. When I click on the Block Replace command, it says, I'd like to replace what? I'm going to replace a part. Since I have it in my drawing, I can use the Select Objects button and pick one of those instances. Notice I didn't have to know the part number or the catalog because I already had it in the drawing. But when I want to switch it to something else, I can type that part number in, or I could go search for it. This one I happen to have one handy. There's another product that I can pull in fairly quickly, and this one's just a little bit more of a transitional chair that's going to be easier to sit in for a longer time, so I'm going to choose this. Now I happen to know the part number. A couple other tricks to this when you go to search for this. As soon as I start typing in a part number, notice my quick search populates all sorts of products that start with those codes. So sometimes you might even come in and type in the catalog code first. Notice when I type this out, it does eventually search for the product that I want. And when I go ahead and I pick that part number, I can either say change all of the ones in this drawing, or I'm going to use Select Objects, and I'm going to window just those chairs in this space and replace them. So now it is switched out. Okay, just a really quick, easy way to move from one graphic to the next. Now we can do the same thing in Giza as well. So for my Giza users, give me a second to zoom into that space. I have this very similar layout. 1 second as it's auto-saving right when I go to open it. Let me zoom in nice and close to that space. So same scenario. I've got the older chair. We want to switch it to a newer chair. You know, there's 1,000 different examples for this. Maybe you've got traditional desk and you want to switch it to one that can be height adjustable, or you just have some different products that you want to change really quickly. In Giza, you pick the item, right-click, change, and you'll notice there's change part number in the menu. When I choose change part number, I just open up this window and I can search for the product number. Again, I'm going to switch it to that same chair. So I type in the product number and you get a little preview of it, and I can come in and choose change. Now, notice that that method, I happen to have just selected one chair, so it only did it to the one. I could go around and select multiple, just holding my control key down. Or if you know you have a lot that you want to switch in an entire drawing, I can also go up to Edit. I can use Select, and I can select them by part number first, which I could just really quickly look through this list to find the part number that I don't want and switch it to the part number that I do want. So whichever method is easiest. You know, in this case, I may only want to do it to the ones in this room. So I'll pre-select those, choose change, look for part number, and look for my product. This one was the H8106. There it is. When I changed it, now it changed all of them. So from this point forward, if I were to send this to a worksheet, it counts the new product. If I were to look at it in visual impression, we'd see it in the new style of chair. All right, so next couple topics. Let's take a look.
All right, so now we're talking about collaboration and connection. Connecting people with their devices and also with each other. Workplaces are being more focused on everyone connecting with different departments and also integrating technology in the furniture so they have the ability to work in other areas, not just their desk. This chart shows how impromptu collaboration happens when you place people in unlike departments and when you take the conveniences away from their desk. So you can do this by, instead of having a printer at each person's desk and a waste and recycling, put a few of those in separate areas scattered throughout the office. This is going to encourage movement, which goes with that health and wellness, and then it also can spark new ideas with collaboration from different departments.
So this is a very different concept. If we think traditionally in so many of our floor plans, we've got these designated areas for these teams. What happens if you start separating them and pulling them apart and proposing more movement in that office? So let's say that we have a presentation that we want to put together. I'm going to go back over to visual impression in a moment and maybe focus on those areas where there is going to be a lot of movement, where I'm going to force a little bit more collaboration, or I know we are culprits of that here, where we tend to send a Skype message before we get up and go talk to someone. So back in the project, when I started and showed the first rendering, I really only focused on one area, this kind of low seating area. This happens to be a small designated area that's right outside of a training room in this building. But there's also other departments or things going on that are adjacent to that that I might want to show. So you might notice a little bit of a larger rendering window for this next area. I'm going to actually show 3 departments or 3 different things going on in the space. So let's go back to visual impression. And this time, instead of just looking at the one really focused area, this scene is actually going to be 2 or 3 different areas. Some of them are still in that third space category, where it might be a nice quick landing space for multiple people. It might be something that's just very casual in the idea that we're right outside of a traditional training room or an entrance to the building. Well, who else could work within that space? Let's take a look. So as this is opening up, you're going to see not only do we have our low seating kind of in the back, but adjacent to that is this high top table. It's got electricity. It's got kind of an area that we could do some informal presentations. Technically, this is going to be open, or kind of from a larger open space, an entranceway. And then just next door is a department. So a team is working here. How can they leverage or work through these spaces? Or how can I show that off in my presentation? So let's take a few different snapshots, or maybe look at this a couple different ways, where if I want to focus and really sell the idea and the concept of this high top table, maybe I get a view that I like, and we'll do this in high quality. As you can see, I've already picked a handful of the finishes. Not every single finish, but enough, I think, to at least show the overall concept in the space. Once this finish renders the rendering in high quality, I'm going to take a snapshot with the camera in this bottom right-hand corner. And when this is finished, there's actually 3 different variations I might do. Right now, this one's high quality. It's pretty quick. It's intended to be very fast for presentation purposes. You know, it's definitely not an absolute photo, but you've got some really good impression with the shadows, the clarity of some of these finishes. So let's take a snapshot of that. I click the camera in the corner, and you can see it snaps that image. I can also go to high quality plus. For time, I'm going to skip that one today because it takes just a little bit longer, but it'll really soften those shadows and clean that up. But there's also hidden line. In some presentations, I like to start with this to maybe take color out of the equation for a moment, or maybe there's a number of variations that I'm going to show off within this space. So I took another image in hidden. Let me zoom back over to this low seating area, maybe change the perspective just a bit. So we'll zoom in, we'll take a quick snapshot, and then I will change that over to high quality as well, because we probably will want to show it in color. We'll give it a moment to finish up. Now, there's also some lighting settings, some different things I could do to adjust this even further if needed, right in the dashboard. So we'll take a snapshot of that. And then let me just switch it back to standard quality for a second so I can kind of move to this space. So the idea here is I want to be able to show this off, but I might do this by demonstrating it through multiple images to start. And then I'll push that scenario even further in a second. Let me get a high quality image. Once this one's done, this will be the last high quality image that I will snapshot. And then we'll talk about, well, what would you do with those snapshots? Am I putting together a real formal presentation, maybe in a PowerPoint? Am I going to email them to someone? Am I going to print them out? There's a lot of different scenarios here. So either from this screen, right where the camera is, I can look at my little film strip of all the images that I've taken. Plus there's a few from when I started the project before I finished all of my colors. Or I could go in and jump over to presentation. You know, if you have a really complex project or one where the client is really looking for a lot of different options or different scenarios, if you remember that fabric that I switched out earlier, let's say that I run in and I go over and I pick the material that's a little bit different. Remember, we did kind of a lighter color here. And let's go ahead and apply that to all of this part number and do the same thing on here. Now, this happens to be, there we go, a different color that I want to demonstrate or show that as well, but I already took snapshots in the first color scenario. So notice if I jump back to any of my snapshots, I can just click on it and it takes me right to that view. So if I want to look at this space or this space or this space, I don't have to sit there for 5 minutes and wait or try to get it just perfect. There we go. So then I can come in and do a high quality in the more neutral color, and we'll save that away. Once this one's finished, we'll take our presentation outside of visual impression. There it is. We'll take that snapshot. Okay, I've got all of my images, and in this example, I've got color A and color B. Let's jump over to presentation. Presentation is essentially a collection of everything you've done. Let me make my images a little bit bigger so we can see them. And you've got this whole series of pictures that we've taken throughout the process, some of them even before I selected my flooring finishes. But now I could take these and either preview them a little bit bigger in this view, or I could easily check the ones that I like and I can save them. There's a save selected at the bottom. Maybe I attach them to an email for approval. Maybe I'm going to save them just to put them in the client's folder and print them later. Where you put these, completely up to you, but reuse them in your presentation. Remember the whole concept that we started with, talking about collaboration and connection. I want to essentially walk someone through those three spaces so they understand how they work together. So right above snapshots, there's a tool called animation, the very, very top of the screen. And if I choose manage animations, this will actually bring me back into visual impression, where I can essentially take a few different snapshots and stitch them together in a video. So I'm just going to come in, pick a few different interest points, basically all the views or snapshots that I'd like to see. Each one of these is like me taking a few steps around the project. Let me zoom in a little bit closer here. There's a few different settings to each one of these. You can tell it how long you want it to look at that particular spot, how long you want it to take to get to that spot, and you can even add a note about something. So over here, maybe there's a few different options for the seating color. I can click on the add comment button, that little yellow sticky note, and maybe put a note in here to say, chair has 4 different colors. Just as an example, we'll save that away. So what this has done is it's taken all of these images, and now when I click play, and now I'm not touching my mouse anymore, and this could be a little jumpy over WebEx, we'll see how smooth it goes, but it's going to just move from image to image to image that I just took and essentially compile those together or have them ready to save outside of visual impression. So whether you're actually thinking about showing this to the end user so they understand, our concept of those spaces working together, maybe we show this to a contractor that we're working with, who else is on this project where that would help understanding how these spaces all show, and especially in this case with my crazy colors, maybe how they work together. When I'm ready to take this outside of visual impression, I would just hit the record button and it would give you options to save this in multiple formats, anything from an MP4 to an M4V. There's a lot of different styles. Right now, it just saves in my presentation area that I can replay that at any time. Okay. So whether you want to use just static images, very easy to snag those and take those outside of visual impression, or you could use the animation and kind of put them all together essentially in a video as well. All right, one more design concept we want to talk about. Let's take a look at the next segment, health and personal wellness.
So lastly, but the most important one is health and personal wellness. Health and personal wellness is typically thought of as more of a luxury in the office than a priority. We have all of these conveniences around us, fast food, takeout, people bringing donuts in on Fridays. It's just very easy to fall out of that routine. And so it is very crucial as designers to address this to your clients and to help change this because it benefits the entire office as a whole, from the coworkers, management, all the way up to the business owners. And this is because happy people are going to equate into an increased productivity in the office. You are going to have a decreased number of absenteeism, and something that even costs more money is presenteeism, which is when you have coworkers that are at work, they're present, but their mind is not presently in the office, and they are going to have a decreased productivity. You also want to attract new talent. It is a definite fact that millennials are going to be taking up a good chunk of our workforce. And another thing is that sit-to-stand desks before were thought of as more of a luxury, and now they are a necessity. And then decreasing healthcare costs as well. So how can we fix this? Sit-to-stand desks, standing height meeting tables, which is what you see here, having a few small break areas that can also act as meeting tables instead of having one large cafeteria that only gets used once a day. You can have a few of these small tables that you can move together for larger meetings, or just, have a relaxing afternoon by some windows if you don't have natural light by your desk. And so just very subtle ways to increase movement in the office. Placing stairways that are still visible near an elevator, but will help people, want to take the stairs instead of hiding them around the corner, adding more convenience to take the elevator. And so, yeah, that sums off the health and wellness trends that we're seeing in the workplace.
All right, a few more tips that go along with this. Now, with health and wellness, and a lot of these maybe newer examples that we're talking about, I picked out a few topics that are kind of nitty-gritty, but hopefully really helpful in large projects. Where Sheila was talking about maybe having multiple smaller areas rather than one big area, like a break room. I have a perfect example of that in today's drawing, where I might want to focus or really look closely at some of my products and understand what part numbers did I use, or I need to go back and clarify when I'm spec checking, or I might want to change some details about it. That's going to help me organize it when I get ready to order. So now we're thinking not just the design process and kind of what that looks like, but also how do we make this work a little bit better and faster in our drawing side, where we now need to really start thinking about maybe how we're going to quote this, how we're going to send details over to our installer for installation work, all of those things. So two different things we'll talk about. For my Giza users, let me step back to the drawing here, and let's look at a real specific area and talk about maybe some of the tagging or the clarity of what we see on that project. And before I send it to Worksheet, I might want to change a few tags. So I'm actually going to zoom back into one of those areas we were just working in. This was the section with that tall top table that was just adjacent to my training room. And in this case, this is great. I bring the products in, I can see all the part numbers, but imagine if you print this and you show the client, they don't really know what this part number represents or what that is. Or maybe you're working on a bid and you don't want all the part numbers actually showing on the project. Inside Giza, if I just go up to the very top in the menu, underneath this draw command, I can look under the view command, I can look under symbol text, and you can actually adjust this. So notice under symbol text, it has a scaling factor that I can adjust. Right now it's set to 100%. Watch what happens when I change it to 0. Now, this is actually doing it to the whole entire drawing, so give it a second to go around, but it essentially turns all those tags off. So just for simplicity of printing this or just making it look a little bit easier, I might want to adjust that symbol text as needed. I could make it a different size. I could make it even bigger than 100%. If you're printing it and you're having a hard time seeing it or your installer needs that, we can adjust that. So I just changed it back to 100 for now. The other thing I want to consider when I start looking around this project is before I send it to Worksheet, I have multiple areas that I might want to quote in phases or show in multiple ways so that client can understand where they're spending their money maybe. So I might want to take a few minutes and change some of the tags. So I selected one of my areas like that tall top table. I'm going to right click, look under the change menu, and there is a change tag function. And under change tag, there's actually a few different tags in this list. The ones that we see used the most are either building, floor, department, or person. Very, very common ones. Let's say I want to use that department field, and I just come in and I call this, tall meeting table. What you call this is totally up to you. You don't see it on the drawing. It's just something we'll be able to sort and find those products really easily when we get over to Worksheet in just a few minutes. So when I open this up, this section, I could change this department, to this was the low seating area. And then finally, I'll just do one more for today's scenario. Maybe this department right here is a team, so I will change that tag and say maybe this is my sales team. When I send this over to Worksheet, I'll be able to open up the department column and easily find those products. In a similar way, for my CAP users, we can do a lot of the same things. I'm actually going to show that first tool a little bit different though. You might notice some of your products do have tags, and some of that could be controlled with the layer on, layer off to adjust those. But notice this group over here, when I brought them in, it actually did not show a tag. But there is a tool inside CAP that is called toggle part number tag. And this guy, show part number tag, it's a toggle button where you can go back and forth. Right now, it doesn't have any detail in that tag field, so you see the product, but you don't see any text. But if I click on the show part number tag button and I select my products, it will turn those part numbers on. So this is going to be, each line is a little bit different in maybe what they do or how they show their tags. Sometimes tags and part numbers, you just want to switch them back and forth depending on how you want to print it. But I would use that to help spec check. Okay, that was the show part number tag. It kind of looks like a little PN with a part number or a tag icon on it. Then, just like I did in Giza, I'd want to go around and tag or assign the different values so I can sort this in Worksheet. The tool in CAP kind of looks like a white piece of paper. I'll just use the assign command, and you'll notice I can come in, and much like Giza, we have those same 4 fields now, building, floor, department, and person. And I also have alias 1, 2, and 3, so you can use any of these. Let me use department just for consistency of what I did earlier. So I'll say, tall meeting space, and I can select my objects and say this group first and assign, and I can go right back into that same tool. And I would repeat this for each unique group. What did I have? A sales team. I'll select this area over here. So in the end, I'll send this over to Worksheet in just a second, and we'll see all of this sorted out. So let's take this one more area. This was my low seating, and we'll select our objects and grab all of those. Okay, now I don't believe every single part has an assignment in here, but a lot of them do. So let me take that and save it and send it to Worksheet. I can look for the Worksheet tool. Inside CAP, it's this little spreadsheet. In Giza, there's a green W that I can just send it over to Worksheet, and we'll go ahead and count everything. So give us a minute. Worksheet basically is going to populate our list of all of our products in this drawing. And when I open this up in the Worksheet file, I'll be able to look for the department column and then sort out my project to understand where all those products came from. So notice when I first opened up my example, I actually don't have all of my columns on, just a handful that come with the basic template. So I'll right-click on any header, look under columns, look under tagging, and here's department. This is just one way to turn that on since I just had one quick one. And then you'll notice I have a few things that don't have department assigned in them. Just for time, I only did a few. So let me sort by that column. I can click on that once to sort all the things that are not tagged, and then click on it again to sort all of the things that do have a tag. So here are all of my items from that tall meeting space, my sales team, and my low seating area. So there's a lot of finishes I have not selected yet. Some of them already have green check marks. I can see some things are complete, but now I can see what I've got left to do. You know, sometimes when I'm sorting a project really quickly and I'm trying to understand, okay, how much are we spending in the sales team? How much are we spending in that low seating area? There's a lot of different combinations or ways I might want to sort this. So I might actually take this and use the multi-sort command. Rather than just sorting by just the one column, that was by clicking on that header, I could come in and sort by multiple. Maybe I want to sort by department, and I might want to sort by part number. Notice if I put department first, it's checked bold. That means when it's the first thing in the list, I can also put a subtotal in there. So I'll say OK, and then all of my items that have a department tag now have a subtotal telling me how much they are. I'm going to do one last thing. Again, I'm thinking big projects. I want to keep it sorted. I want to keep it really simple and easy. I'm going to just do one last thing in the View menu. I'm going to go under Rows, and I'm going to turn my products off. This sounds kind of crazy, but this was what I was going for. I wanted to see all the items I don't have tagged. That was a lot. My low seating area, about $12,000 list. My sales, $31,000, and my tall meeting space was $13,000. So what I did with that tool is I just told Worksheet, just for a moment, turn the product lines off. Maybe I'm not working on my finishes or my counts at the moment. I just want a quick overview, high-level view. When I want that back on, I go back up to View, Rows, and Products. So I hope that helps and you learned a few little tips today. I want to mention, if you have questions in the future, if you want to collaborate on something, if you just have a general software or industry-related question, find us out in the community. We've got a section on our website now that everyone is invited to join, and you can post in our forum. There's a little bit of chatter going on out there. And you guys, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day to come visit us online. Everybody have a great afternoon. Thank you.